DIY Automotive. So in this video, we've got a 07 Monte Carlo SS. The alternator's not charging. Customer had a message come up on the dash that said service charging system. So we're going to kind of go over what to look for to see if it is or isn't charging. And then we're going to kind of go over checking the alternator out. So a fully charged battery is 12.6 volts. If your alternator's charging, you're going to want to see, 13.6 or higher. You don't want over 15 definitely, but usually 13.6, around 14, that's going to kind of be where it's going to be sitting at. So what we'll do is we'll crank it up and we'll make sure it's charging. If it's not charging the battery, then we're going to pull the little connector off the alternator back there, and there's an orange wire. And what that orange wire is, it's the signal wire from the PCM to tell the alternator to charge. So you're going to be looking for around 5 volts on it. So I mean, if it's a little less, a little more, you're probably going to be all right, but you're going to want to have around 5 volts. If it's getting 5 volts but the alternator's not charging, I'm going to say you can go ahead and say, hey, we got a bad alternator. If it's not getting 5 volts, we're going to dig into it a little deeper and kind of see what's going on there. So hopefully we're going to look at it, it'll have 5 volts, alternator's not charging, we'll change it out and we'll cover all that. Now to check our little connector, we've got a little homemade test lead here, and all this is a pin out of a piece of scrap harness, because whenever you're checking your connectors, there it goes. Whenever you're checking your connectors, you don't want to shove your test lead like this one right here. You don't want to shove it in your connector, because what you'll do, you'll actually spread your pin out, and then you won't have a good connection when you put everything back together, and you'll end up with problems. So you want to make sure you've got something you can use that's not going to mess your connector up. Now I've got another video on how to come across these, super simple. If you're going to be doing this kind of stuff at the house, I would highly recommend you go to your local salvage yard. Probably won't cost you anything, and super handy to have. So to do this, we're just going to be using the little budget-friendly multimeter here, the one that's bent through hell and back. So we'll get into it. I'll go ahead and crank the car up. We'll switch this to 12 volts and we'll start checking stuff. Alright, so I've got my negative lead clamped onto my negative post on my battery. So we're just going to turn our multimeter on 12 volts here. Then we're going to put our positive lead on the battery. Now you want to be careful to keep your cables and wires away from this accessory belt. You definitely do not want to get anything caught up in there. So anyways, we'll go ahead and check this out. Alright, so we're getting 12.1. So that's not good, it's not charging. So now we're going to go up and we're going to check our connector back there. So right there we're getting 3.7, 3.9. So I'm going to say, since we're right under 4 volts, I think it's going to be alright. So we're going to go ahead and start looking into our alternator. Now on this clip, on this connector back here, you do have a lock pin that keeps you from pushing this tab in. On this one I had a blue lock pin, so you would want to remove that. It would just push down out of this and then you'll be able to take it off. If your car has been worked on before, there's a good chance it will not have that pin in it anymore. So we'll get this thing turned off and we'll get into how to remove the alternator. Alright, so we're going to have to remove our serpentine belt to get the alternator off. And to do that, I've removed the passenger tire. So I'm going to try not to shake all around too much. Crawl up underneath there and show you what we're working with. Alright, so that's going to be our serpentine belt tensioner right there, and all I've done is took 2 hose clamps and put them together, and I've put them around the tensioner. If I can get you up in here a little bit better, around the top right there and around the bottom right there. Now then, I've come through with the ratchet and a socket back on the back side and just tightened it until it pulled that tensioner in. That way it will give you some slack in your serpentine belt. That's the easiest way I know of. I believe GM has a specialty tool for this tensioner. Honestly, I can't remember. I looked it up years ago, but I've been using this ever since. So hopefully that'll kind of help you guys out. See if I can get you back up top up here without throwing you everywhere. Alright, so now that we have got some slack in our serpentine belt, I didn't tighten my clamp really enough to give me a whole lot of slack. But anyways, what we're going to want to do is this pulley right down here. It's a smooth pulley, so we're going to want to pull our belt off it. And never put your fingers between the belt and the pulley, just in case something stupid was to happen, that belt give out. I mean the hose clamp. But all we're going to do, I'm trying to keep my hands out of your way, is we're just going to slide that belt back towards us. Just like that. Now with that out of the way, we can take it off our alternator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop this belt back like this right here. I'm going to run me a bungee cord from this belt up here to the radiator support. That way it keeps tension on it and the belt doesn't come off all of our other pulleys, because if we don't have to fish our hands down there and try to line all that crap back up, we don't want to. So I'm going to set the camera down, get my bungee cord on here, show you how that's set up, and then we'll get back to our alternator. Alright, so now that we've got our serpentine belt out of the way, we're going to want to undo our battery. I've always been taught undo negative. That's kind of the common practice, undo negative, especially if it's in a tight area. That way while you're undoing it, if you happen to ground your tool out, it's not going to arc. So you want to do that. And then back here on the alternator, we'll get started on it. So probably the first thing we're going to do is take that big red wire, the power wire, we'll undo it. I believe it's going to be a 13mm socket, and it's got a little rubber boot on it that will pull back, and we'll unbolt it. And once we get it off, more than likely I'll tape it up with some electrical tape. That way if I bump something or something crazy happens and our battery lead does touch our battery again, we don't have to worry about that bad boy arcing out on anything. Once we've got that out of the way, we'll undo our connector, move it to the side, and I believe there's just going to be 4 15mm bolts holding this bad boy in there. So we'll zip them out and pull it out of there. Now the 2 back ones, they look a little sketchy, like they may be aggravating to get to, so we'll kind of see how that goes, and let's get to it. Alright, so I'm going to take and pull this boot back and just try to work it back a little bit, just like that right there. That exposes your terminal. Then we're going to take our 13mm, good thing it's a bad alternator jugger. If I'd just been removing this for something else, I would have been pretty scared right about now, but we'll set this up here so we don't lose it. We'll go ahead and get our electrical tape ready. We'll pull our wire off right there. Go ahead and tape it up real good. Fold the end of our tape. That way when we come back, that'll be sticking out, we can undo it. Set that out of the way. Undo our connector. Again, it's got a little squeeze tab right here on the end of it. Just squeeze that tab and it'll pull off. Make sure you've got your little connector lock pushed out of there if it's still got it in there. Now we'll get started on our 4 bolts. There's 1 loose, 2 loose. We're going to try a deep well back here on the back. Alright, so it worked on the deep well worked on the bolt closest to your fender, but it's not going to work on this other bolt, so we'll have to put our regular socket back on it. Get your hand down in there. Now we've got them all loose. So we'll just go back, take them out. Now I'm not sure if these bolts are going to be different lengths, but anytime you're taking something like this apart, it's a good idea to kind of pay attention to your bolt lengths. That way you can make a mental note if one's longer than the other, so you don't mess up, try to put them back in the wrong spot. So our two front ones are going to be the same length. Now we'll get back here, see if we can get the back ones out. Alright, so we've got all four of the bolts out. And then we'll pull the alternator up. Now the back bolt closest towards the driver's side, it was a little bit aggravating. It's one of them. It was tight enough you couldn't turn by hand, but it was loose enough the ratchet didn't really want to click when you're trying to loosen it. So anyways, now that we've got all them out, we'll see if we can't pull that alternator out of there, and we'll compare it to our new one to make sure that they look the same. They're going to bolt up the same, and then we'll get ready to put it back in. So just like that, there's that one. Here's our new one. Now I have looked at them, they do look the same, so we should be good to go. We'll go ahead and set our new one down in here. Just like that. Now, all four of our bolts were the same, so that's something you're not going to have to worry about on this one anyways. We'll get them started. Alright, so we got all four of the bolts started. I'll get those tightened up, and then we'll jump back into it. We'll hook our battery cable back to our alternator. Then we'll hook our connector back in, put a serpentine belt on, and make sure she's doing like she's supposed to. Alright, so we got our alternator tightened up in there. Now we're going to go ahead and put our charging cable back on it. We will remove the new nut. We'll take all of our fancy electrical tape off of here. Slide that bad boy on there. And we'll tighten her down. Now you don't want to go super crazy on all this because this is kind of fragile. So you just kind of want to snug it up. Don't get all gun ho with it. It don't have to be just as tight as you can possibly humanly get it. Once we get that on there, we're going to want to work our boot back up on there. Just like that. Plug our connector in, make sure it clips, give it a little tug test on the plastic, make sure it don't come undone. And now we're ready to put our serpentine belt on. So we're just going to take and slide our belt back over our alternator, and then what I'll do is we'll slide it back down on our pulley down below it. And we'll get underneath there and take our little homemade tensioner device loose. We'll take our little hose clamps loose, and that'll tighten the belt back up. Now once you have that belt tightened back up, or even before you have it tightened back up, you want to double check and make sure that all your belt's lined up on all your pulleys. Make sure it's on the square, it's not sitting halfway off or cockeyed or any of that stuff. So anyways, we'll put our belt back on, undo our tensioner. We're going to go ahead and hook up our battery, get everything hooked back up, and then I'll be back with you and we'll crank it up and test it out and see if it works like it's supposed to. Alright, so we've gotten everything buttoned back up. We've got our belt tensioner undone, it's back tight, belt's tight. We've verified that all of our pulleys are lined up with our belt. We have reconnected our battery cables on our battery, installed our new alternator, and we've put our tire back on and took everything out from under the car. So now we're ready to crank her up and see if she's going to charge. Once again, we're going to turn our little voltmeter here on 12 volts. There we go, 13.9. So she is good to go. Alright, so we've got everything tightened up, tidied up, done. All of our loose ends tied up, all that good crap. We've got our alternator on. We've verified that our belt is squared up on all of our pulleys, that it's not misaligned. That's not going to cause an issue. We have took our little contraption off our tensioner down there. We have put our tire back on, got everything out from under the vehicle, and we've reconnected our battery cables. So we should be good to go. So now we're going to crank it up, make sure she's charging. If so, job well done. Hopefully this will help some of y'all out. I'll put a link to this multimeter in the comments or in the description somewhere, I don't know yet. And it's like 20 or 30 bucks, I think. And I've got 4 or 5 of them. They're awesome little meters to throw in your vehicle. But anyways, we'll crank her up and see what she does. Alright, we're going to turn our multimeter back to 12 volts. And we're going to check our battery. 13.9. So she's gonna be good to go. We'll shut her off real quick. So hopefully this has helped some of y'all out. If it did, hey, write in the comments and let me know. Let me know if this helped you. If it didn't help you, hey, let me know. I mean, I'm trying to help y'all out, and I want to get better at this, and y'all need to know where I need to improve on. But anyway, so hopefully y'all find this useful, and it'll save some of y'all some money, and also hopefully it'll keep you from going out and buying an alternator if that's not what you need. If you're having these kind of issues with this and everything, you're gonna want to make sure your battery ends are good, going to your battery or your battery cable ends. I'm sorry. And hopefully this helped y'all out. If it has, hey, give me a thumbs up, subscribe for some more stuff. Anyways, till next time, appreciate y'all looking.